uniform. Because I would tag along my mom every day. And naaara ako sa mga uniform ko mga estudyante. Iwaman ako sa diring bag. May sa diri akong pencil case, may baunan, even if I was not a student yet at that time. I became a student at the age of 5 when I entered kindergarten. I was a USI student until I entered when I was 5. I graduated from high school when I was 16. I was away for college, but I was back as an associate professor with the College of Commerce. Kasi mga kotecher ko yung paligid. So I was in USI for a long time. And even after I stopped teaching, I was here almost every day because of my 3 children. I think Aika entered USI in 92 or 93, and Jillian graduated from grade school in 2011. So from 93 to 2011, I was here 4 times a day to bring them to school in the morning, pick them up at lunch, bring them again in the afternoon, and pick them up in the afternoon. If there are parents here who were about the same batch as any of my children, I was a regular fixture at the waiting area. So, USI is really home. Growing up here ingrained in me the value of caring for the least, and the lost. I still remember that every classroom, I don't know if until now, here has a sign that says, "The charity of Christ urges us." Iba pa ba? Nagigiramdumang pa ba ito? Our annual visits to the communities, where we would have feeding programs, where we would take care of the old and the sickly in Villa Marila, and serve those who need help, taught me that citizenship is not about what government owes us. It is about what we all can do for the ordinary people. Here, we had annual plays before in this very auditorium. Sometimes I would be given minor roles, pero may pang kontrabida. But the best roles for me would be manning these curtains. Memorized ko, yaon tigdiyo ang pamabukas sa kabasara. Or I would be up there taking care of the lights. I think the only time I was forced to deliver a speech in this auditorium was when I was 6. When I graduated second honors from my prep class, and I was required to deliver a welcome address. My mom, si Mami, who started teaching in USI at the age of 18, and she's now 81, turning 82. Ay, sorry, Mami. Nalingawan kong sikreto pala. My mom was always the star in the family. I was forever compared to her. Compared to her, I was always the ugly duckling. Si mga teachers, may kaito nagigirumduman ko pag nahihiling ako. Nakakabit ako kay Mami. Si Mami, abang puti, ako maitom, di ako naging easy. Ang perming comment na nadadangog ko, ay, taano ni tasugad sa ama. That was a very common comment that I would always hear. And I remember, I don't know if my former teachers remember, that in one of the school programs, I think I was already in high school then, Mommy had a solo ballet number. Nag-ballet siya, solo dance number. And I was seated in the audience, squirming in my seat. Ako si Supugod, pero si Mami sigisipay. Some of you might know my younger sister, Malu. Siya si mas maputi, saka siya si mas perming nakangisi. Sa school plays, siya si mga major roles, siya ang bida. And Malu would join beauty contests, declamation, and extemporaneous speaking contests. Pero ako, I joined quiz bee and essay writing contests since there was no live audience. I did fairly well in school and was very active in organizations, but was too shy to assume leadership roles. I remember, except one time, uso pa katuang CAT. Uso pa ang CAT, it was the big thing then. I was being groomed to be the corps commander. I was the president of our OCS class. Pero I think I'm a rebel by nature. I was the president, but I led a revolt. I led a mutiny. I was able to encourage my fellow junior officers to do a mass resignation to protest some policies. We were very successful, but that cost me my corps commandership. I never ran for the student council because I cannot imagine myself talking before a big crowd. In fact, I never imagined campaigning for myself ever. So never in my wildest dreams did I dream of entering politics. I was content with my own roles. Even then, I was happy to be away from the spotlight. In fact, when I married my husband, I still preferred to stay in the background. Aram nindo yan. I got married at a very young age of 22. Di ka mo mag-arog sa ko. Just a year after graduating from college, I got married to my first boss. And less than a year after we were wed, my husband Jesse ran for mayor and he won. So I was the mayor's wife. But I was still painfully shy. I kept house for him while I was working full-time here as an associate professor. I was also his cheerleader, his silent supporter, organizer, and even his personal driver. These were not just roles that were thrust into me, on me. These were roles that I chose. Many say that to be an empowered woman in our society, you have to stand out and be heard and compete with men. That all must listen to your voice at every opportunity. Many say gender equality is all about being as strong as a man, as important and as celebrated. I have said this before and I will say it again, that in my life at least, empowerment meant knowing when to let go of the limelight and when to step up. It meant knowing when to keep quiet and when to speak. Being empowered meant understanding that not all kinds of strength are visible and auditory. When we know our true value as women, we can sit back with a secure knowledge that our partner values our judgment because we value ours. And that together, we will be working on the same goals. We are not in a contest to be heard, but we are working on the same team in this amazing game called life. That was how it was for me and my husband. He was in the limelight as a public servant. And it was my choice to keep the home happy for him, support him, and our 3 girls. But my husband also made sure that I evolve into the best version of myself. We were partners every step of the way. In hindsight, my husband had a short and magnificent life, where his simplicity touched the lives of so many in a grand way. As I helped him in the background, I did not realize that I was being trained. So I am glad I kept out of the limelight, because then he shone in his. And by doing so, enriched our short time together in this life. And I wouldn't have it any other way. To me, that was real empowerment. According to the United Nations, women empowerment, and I think that's our theme this morning, is the new frontier for human rights in the 21st century. Here in the Philippines, Filipinas enjoy more liberties compared with most women around the world. Our daughters are able to study alongside our sons. Women like us are able to join our male peers as equals at work, changing the dynamics of our boardrooms, the development world, and local governance. In 2017, the Philippines ranked 10th in the Global Gender Gap Report, and this is 3 notches lower from 2015, when we ranked 7th. Despite this, we still remain ahead of over 100 states, including first world countries like the UK, Canada, Germany, and Switzerland. But sadly, women still account for 11.2 million of our poor population. A big number are still vulnerable to indecent working conditions, sexual abuse, and inadequate social security. Despite the milestones we have already reached, we must do more. In the public sphere, we see how women are constantly ridiculed, taunted, and sexually objectified, sometimes unbelievably, by those who are occupying seats of power. In social media, fake news and alternative facts have given birth to a culture that turns a blind eye to disrespect and misogyny. If you watched yesterday's Senate hearings on fake news, it is apparent that this is everyone's problem. Perhaps many of you are familiar with how I've become the subject of so much hate and viciousness. Even my own daughters were not spared from threats of bodily harm and rape. But how did we reach this point? Is this who we are as a people? And of course, our answer is a resounding no. And we hope to prove that through one of the programs of the Office of the Vice President, which Dean Dinah mentioned earlier, called Istorya ng Pag-asa. This is our attempt to counter hate and anger by shining a light on ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. We have launched Istorya ng Pag-asa in Palawan, Cebu, here in Naga, in Baguio, Cagayan de Oro, Dumaguete, Bacolod, Iloilo, Quezon City, Albay, Sorsogon, to name a few. And as we went around the country, we came across many inspiring stories of Filipinas who have triumphed amidst trials and adversity. And one of them is Chacharing from Naga. I don't know if her face looks familiar. I first met her when my husband was still mayor. She was a street sweeper, employed by the City Hall. Always smiling, always happy. Ikti ang assignment niya. Sa Elias Angeles hanggang sa 15 Martires. But what we did not know then was that Chacharing was a single parent. On her street sweeper earnings, she sent all of her 5 children to school. And they all finished. When they graduated from high school, she also decided to enter high school. She took evening classes at the Kamhay while cleaning our streets during the day. She graduated high school at the age of 50. And then she was not contented. She still pursued college. And she graduated from college at the age of 54. Kaya na-promote na siya from street sweeper to office staff. Another inspiring story that we came across with is that of Ave. Ayan, si Ave from Masbate. Ave was orphaned when she was in grade school. Nagdadan-sunudan. She was an only child, nagdadan-sunudan ang mama sa kapapa niya. But she really wanted to pursue school, so she applied to be a helper of one of her teachers in Masbate. Mabuot man si teacher, she helped her continue with her studies. But when she graduated from high school, the teacher told her that she would not be able to afford to send her to college. So si Judge Ave naghanap ng ibang avenues, and then she learned that Bicol Colleges in Legazpi was offering a scholarship. So nagbiyahe siya from Masbate to Legazpi. Ang istorya niya, nag-abot siya Mayo na aga, sararado pa. Maman siyang kabisto sa Legazpi. So she waited outside the gates of Bicol College, waiting for the gates to open so she could inquire. And then when she did inquire, ugmaman si Bicol College, nakapasar siya, ginibo siyang scholar. But then, she was informed na ang scholarship tuition lang. Tuition lang si scholarship would not include miscellaneous fees and her, daily sustenance. So, naghapot siya, is there work available? Pigko siya as school janitress. So, she was school janitress during the day and she was taking courses at night. Sa pagtsatsaga, natapos siya. Nag-graduate siya ng college. And after graduating from college, she found work as a court stenographer. Nagtrabaho siya sa court as a court stenographer. And after a few years of being a court stenographer, she was inspired to take up law. So she took up law in the evening. She was a court stenographer during the day, a law student at night, finished law, passed the bar, and became a lawyer. After a few years, hulaan nindo kung ano na si Apeng niya. She's already a judge. Municipal Trial Court Judge of Daraga, Albay. Super inspiring, di ba? Another story, and I will relay this to you because we have very young people here, is the story of Sabrina Ontico. Sab is the daughter of an economist. Ateneo de Manila educated, comes from a well-off family. And after graduation, was about to submit her application paper to the medical school. Because she was meant to be a doctor. But one of her mentors told her she would make a very good public school teacher. That moment of impact caused her to rethink her life. She shared that everyone was telling her, sayang ka, lumipat ka na lang sa private or ituloy mo yung pagdodoktor. Meron pa daw nagsabi, sa bagay, hindi ka rin dyan tatagal kasi mahirap maging teacher. Siguradong magbabago din yung decision mo. That was how Teacher Sab was relaying to us what people told her. But Teacher Sab followed her heart's calling and applied at DepEd. She is now on her 8th year as a public school teacher in Culiat Elementary School in a very poor community in Quezon City. Ayan. Di ba these stories have power? Because they involve real women who chose to stay and to fight. And pag-aram ta ang araw kaning stories, maintindi pa kita sa mga purveyors of fake news. Diba? They bring hope and inspiration in a time when anger and hate have taken over our country's narrative. Today's gathering is yet another important step in changing the conversation. Schools and universities like USI hold so much potential in celebrating the value of women in society. Education plays a major role in giving women the right for self-determination. It frees us from society's long-held stereotypes. It gives us the freedom to make informed choices. And this is something I learned during my days as an alternative lawyer for an NGO called Saligan. For more than a decade, I spent countless days traveling to the most unheard of barangays and touching base with local communities here in the Bicol region. That was after my USI stint. There, I saw with my own eyes how women at the grassroots still suffer abuse, most often from their own husbands, relatives, or friends. I can still remember how we would wake up in the middle of the night to distressed calls coming from battered wives who needed sanctuary and legal help. We would assist them file appropriate cases against their abusers. But many of the complainants never showed up in court. Many of them returned back home to their abusive husbands because their self-esteem has been crushed. And they did not have the financial capability to feed their children and live on their own. These experiences taught me that to liberate every Filipina from fear abuse, and self-doubt, we must start providing her with better options for economic growth and participation. Economic empowerment is where freedom and equality begin. It ensures that every people, regardless of gender, social class, or ethnicity, have equal access to the most basic rights, liberties, and opportunities. At one point in my life, I led the Naga City Council of Women, which was composed of female representatives from the local and national government, the private sector, and civil society. Because the council was directly involved in planning and budgeting and implementing gender and development programs, the outcomes were much more effective. GOD funds were directed to helping women find their own skills and start their own livelihood, when before, these funds were being spent on non-productive endeavors, like buying t-shirts to be used during parades, and out-of-town trips masked as learning activities. We at the Office of the Vice President believe that pushing for women empowerment is a responsibility that falls on everybody's shoulders. Local government officials, private organizations, and the community must come together. We can accomplish so much more if we set aside our differences and work toward effective collaboration. This is the driving force behind our anti-poverty program called Angat Buhay. Since we launched Angat Buhay in October 2016, we have reached out to women in many poor communities around the country, providing them with not just skills training, but also the necessary support to develop their businesses. We have sought ways to connect them with markets where they can sell their products and services at better prices. One of the places we visited was Agutaya. I don't know if you've ever heard of that place. It's a small island community in northern Palawan. If you know Coron is much more popular. To get to Agutaya, you have to ride a 10-hour boat ride from Coron. Nagduman kami. There are no hospitals on the island, and residents have to travel far to see a doctor. Mayong kuryente, mayong potable water. The only elementary school in one barangay has been destroyed by Yolanda almost 5 years ago and remains dilapidated up to this day. We were met by school children, pero si mga nagsabat sako sa luwas. Mayo lang banda pag dumangko sa Agutaya. Pero arag mang kato, nakalinya si mga estudyante. Nag-start siya sa kinder hanggang grade 6. As we went along, I noticed that the grade 5 children were only as big as the grade 1 children. And we were told that the reason for this is that most of them were stunted. And that their condition was already irreversible. Because apparently, after the age of 5, stunting is already irreversible. Ito bagang ang apod sa to, bansot. Pero ang problema pa lang sa bansot, bako lang silang kao. But also the mental capacities are affected. In Barangay Maracanao, we met Nanay Mildred, a bubbly woman in her 50s. Like most women from her barangay, Nanay Mildred is a farmer by day and a weaver by night. On most evenings, Nanay Mildred and her friends would weave hats and baskets under the moonlight. Because the entire island did not have electricity. Hearing her story and the stories of the people there left us with broken hearts. So we promised to return with help. Last November, our team returned to Agutaya. We were accompanied by representatives from our partner, Team Energy, to install solar panels in 152 households in 2 of the poorest barangays in the municipality, including Barangay Maracanao. You can imagine the wonder and excitement in the people's eyes when Team Energy installed solar panels. in their houses and taught the families how to maintain them. Excited pati sila na makakadala na dasit ng probinsyano. After a few weeks, we were told that women weavers like Nanay Mildred now produce more bags and hats because they can work even after the sun goes down. Their products are now being sold in the nearby Amanpulo Resort. Nadang ganito Amanpulo, ito mahalo na maray. Napigdudurumanan kang mayayaman. And other Aman luxury hotels around the world. We also met Mokrima Abdul Rahman Muhammad, a 26-year-old aspiring teacher from Barangay Dayawan in Marawi City. When we visited her community in March last year, we were there in March, we discussed ways on how they can produce more landak, a traditional Maranao textile known for its vibrant and colorful design. Plans of selling the cloth to bigger markets were already on the way. But in less than 2 months after we left, the Marawi siege took place. Mokrima and her loved ones were left with no choice but to escape. Through the generosity of our partners, Metrobank Foundation, and the Negros Volunteers for Change, our Marawi women weavers now have sewing and weaving equipment and capital to rebuild their lives. Last week, Friday of last week, we were in Lake Cebu in Cotabato, South Cotabato. There, I had the opportunity of meeting the members of the Lake Cebu Indigenous Women Weavers Association, nasa taas kang bukid. A community-based organization comprised of 85 Tiboli women weavers. Yan, sulot ko sila kay Nanagipo. One of their goals is to promote ikat weaving, a natural dyeing process, not only as a source of livelihood, but also as an integral part of their indigenous culture. Starting with a seed capital of 15,000 pesos, their enterprise grew until eventually they were able to establish not just a flourishing livelihood, but also the country's first ever IP, kindergarten center for their children. Kaya desididong maray sinda dahil pag may kindergarten, buwelo sindang makawid. May wawalatan kan mga akin. While talking to some of them, I discovered that almost all of them were uneducated. But they wanted to learn how to read and write. Pero this is surprising. They tried enrolling themselves in a nearby school, but their husbands got upset. Not to be defeated, these mothers found a way to learn by sitting in during the kindergarten classes of their children. Nakakaugmang hilingon. Nagpupuslit sila para makaadal magsurat sa magbasa. Our Angat Buhay partner, Assisi Foundation, is now helping the women weavers sell their products and have established a level 3 water system in the community. These are just some of the inspiring stories we gathered on the ground. And they continue to inspire us to do better in our work. Despite the many problems we face as a nation, there is still hope that better things are coming around. That is why I am inviting all of you to join us in our advocacy. Actually, we launched it already during the Alumni Homecoming in February, our partnership. Because the fight for women empowerment in the 21st century does not belong to a single group or community, or even to women alone. This fight is our fight as one nation. So together, let us find the best solutions to make our country better for both men and women. It will not be easy, but everything that is worth fighting for will require nothing but the most dedicated and most demanding work from all of us. But perhaps it is the process much more than the end result. That will be our greatest blessing in the end. So to all our dear sisters, our administrators, our teachers, our staff, our students, and our alumni, happy 150th year to all of us. May USI continue to produce young girls who will stand up and continue the fight for gender equality and women empowerment. Diyos mabalos, mabuhay po, Kangubos.